They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole
Get
we found.
ready. It's time again to venture down the rabbit hole into the world of cybersecurity. You're plugged into the podcast for security leaders and practitioners with a business sense. Prepare for unique interviews, insights, and practical advice that makes your job just a bit easier. And now, please welcome your guides on this adventure, James Jardine and the White Rabbit, Ruffalo Loose.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to yet another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Raph here. I have a fun guest for you guys today. My longtime friend and former coworker and exec extraordinaire, Don Marie Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Marie, how are you?
I'm great. Do you remember when we met in Vegas?
Yes, we were at the what was it? What bar was that? That was
At the Continental.
is it Continental?
Is it Continental?
No. We were sitting at Vesper Bar in the Cosmo.
The Cosmo. That's what I
I
was
can't
thinking.
remember.
That's
I can.
right. With Brian Krebs.
That's right.
we were hanging out with
Yeah,
Brian.
we were hanging out with Krebs. That was the night Justin and I broke Krebs, if I recall correctly. We ended up at like 2 a.m. going out and getting pizza at Secret Pizza in the Cosmo, and he said he got a call because Brian was supposed to be on stage at some point after that, shortly after, and he said Brian woke up in a face down in a pizza, and it was funny.
Oh. Yeah, we went to Holstein's because we wanted milkshakes.
Yes, adult milkshakes were delicious.
That's right.
That place is still there, and that is one of my favorite places to go in Vegas. Those burgers are delightful, and then like the adult mint milkshake with Bailey's and I think something else in it. It's just
Well, I just like to think of that time, I always say about conferences, and particularly where we're all kind of ready. I always say when the introverts are ready to get back to conferences, it's been too long.
yeah, right.
But I always say to my team, I want you to go to conferences and not necessarily for the content. You can download that shit later, right? It's for the conversations that you have, the people that you meet, and the network you create helps me as your employer. And I feel like you're a really good example of that because we met there and then we later became colleagues at Optiv, and we've maintained this, and so it's just a good example of go to these conferences and have really cool think tank moments. Yeah.
Hallway Con was always beneficial. I hope we get back to that very soon. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely going out to summer camp this year. They're like, we're gonna do it hybrid. I'm like, I'm already there. Like, I have to go. I cannot not. I can't do it.
Yeah. So I actually looked at it and when I saw that they were going to go live, I was like, oh, I think I need to go to summer camp. And part of our coming to chat today is I'm on this hiatus. I've decided to take this break, and I was thinking, well, I'm not sure if it's entirely taking a break if you go to summer camp, except it is. I mean, it's just
yes.
And even as a security leader, I'm not so sure that summer camp really reflects what I do so much. But when asked, every time I get asked in an interview, how do you maintain your technical wits or how do you stay at the front? And I always say I attend these conferences even though they're not about security leadership. They're not really about business leadership. They're really about staying connected to what's happening.
I totally agree. I absolutely agree. And I think the vast majority of the things that I've learned, and you and I know similar people that we know the circle that are out there presenting. We know the people. Like if I want the content, I can just text them or DM them and be like, hey, can you send me the content? What I'm looking for is like, all right, what's all the things that are not on the slides? What are we talking about now?
Right.
And then the part that's been missing the last year in months of this 2-week lockdown is that we're just not able to have human interactions that causes a lot of mental and emotional anguish that is probably going to start I'm sure it has manifested already, and I've seen it in people, but there's a lot of people that I've talked to in the last 3 months that are like, as soon as this is right about now, actually, they were like, as soon as this is starting to gets opened up and things start moving again, they're like, I'm out. I'm gonna take like a month-long vacation. I'm just getting away from everything, and I fear that I'm glad we're able to, because it was getting kind of dark for a minute there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think so this is anecdotal. I have no real studies on this, but in our field, many folks in our field are introverts, right? This is not a rocking surprise to anyone, and that doesn't mean that we're not so. People always say to me, "Oh, you're not an introvert. You're really fun," and I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm still absolutely an introvert."
It's just exhausting.
But it's exhausting. Conferences particularly, man, I need a week to recover from a conference. So for a lot of us, we're peopled out
Yeah.
after a day of being, face to face. The other thing is many people who work in tech, again, kind of anecdotal, and I have seen some research on it, tend to have ADHD, which is both a benefit. I hate the D part of the second D, because, if you think about it, we're not disordered. This is the survival of our species comes from us being able to quickly move from thing to thing. So we are not at all disordered, but it allows us to deeply focus on something that's exciting to us.
Yeah.
And it also allows us to move to thing to thing. And in a world of Zoom all the time, it's killing people who struggle to keep focus on something that's not necessarily
It's like being
exciting
stuck
to
in
them.
the worst possible meeting in person with sitting at the head of the table, and you can't focus.
Yeah.
You can't pick up your phone. You can't do anything else, and you're like, I'm dying right now. Please, somebody do something interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, I was a work from home person before COVID came along, but COVID forced us more to start using cameras.
Yeah.
And do I just long for the day for a good old fashioned conference call so I can walk and talk?
Yes. Oh, I think I'm a pacer as well. I one of my favorite things to do is when we got the Bluetooth untethered headsets. I could just literally walk around my office in circles and make myself dizzy and turn around and walk back the other way, or stare out the window, or whatever, and have something for my brain to do while I listen to Mike or Susie just like, because there's parts of, come on, let's face it, we've all been in those meetings where like, this could have been an email an hour and a half ago. Why are we in here? And now they're all Zoom calls, so they're staring at you. What are they looking at? What's going on over here? Are they typing? Like,
I got to give GSK really, the CEO at GSK, Emma Walmsley, came out kind of early in COVID. And she said, here's the thing, we can't all do this meetings thing. So for each meeting, I want you to tell me, is it informational? Are you seeking a decision? Or are you seeking just affirmation, confirmation, right? So she's trying to get away from, do I actually need to attend this or not? Do you need me for the decision? And she pushed that down to everyone.
Okay.
And we really worked that to the end. I also put in meeting-free Fridays for my team.
That's awesome.
And so I blocked off their Fridays, so it always looked like they were completely utilized. But for a security team, we need time to think about the hard problems and solve them. You can't do that in hour increments in between meetings. You can't solve for hard things.
Well, and I think that's the catch. You've nailed it perfectly. Is that there are things that require us to, I've got my trusty whiteboard right here. There's days where
Me too.
I feel like I've done nothing, but I look at my whiteboard and go, oh yeah, I think I probably solved about 3/4 of the problem I've been thinking about for the last 6 months. And then suddenly you're like,
Right.
that was a productive, but otherwise you've got nothing, right? You just jot down notes, or like the
Notes that you don't have time to go back to. Even.
yes. Well, handwriting recognition on my iPad has been a joy. Although my handwriting is apparently somewhere between a calligraphist. Is that a thing? Somebody that writes calligraphy a lot?
I don't know.
I just made up a word. Haha. Or my mom enforced us to learn good penmanship. So I write, I do a lot of the loops and the all that. So Apple simply is like, oh wow, you have very nice hand. I can write all your words. And then I'm in a meeting and I'm like jotting really quickly. And they're like, yeah, I have no idea what this crap is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always said, meeting free Fridays are for you to go back to all the notes that you took, right, and sort them, whatever. It's for certifications, right? How many of us have certifications we need to maintain, but we can't get our CPEs because our job, doesn't allow us to do that. And if you have the time to take a break, I want you to do that too. But more than anything, I want you to clear your slate so that come the weekend, you can do the weekend. And I always used to say to people, I don't want any emails on the weekend. If it's important enough that you need to email me on the weekend, it's probably a phone call.
It was funny. I remember working for Jason. He made a comment at one point because there was a Saturday I was working on one of the drafts for one of the blueprints that we were producing, and I get a text from him and it said, "If you don't log off now, I'm having IT disable your account." I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, that's noted." Thanks, boss.
Right. Well, and we're particularly now we need to protect against that burnout.
Yeah.
And by telling people, do not email me on the weekend, right? You're sending them a very clear message to put their stuff down. I won't email you. You don't email me. Everybody's happy,
Yeah.
right? Because if it's important enough to be doing on Saturday, it's probably a phone
Yeah.
call.
Yeah, and it's easy. I think what's happened is I've worked from home since my HP job was largely from home. So I've been from home since roughly '07. So that's a long time to be working from home. And yeah, in between that, I've had offices, but they've always been remote offices, right? We'd fly to Denver, we'd fly here, we'd spend a day there, a week here. But largely my setup was from home. And working in an office, I feel like I would get there, I would sit down, I'd have nothing else around me. I'm in my little cube or my office, and I'm, get my things done and answer my emails and walk out to lunch, come back, do more work.
Yeah.
At some point, I would go home, and that would be my day, and I could count how many hours I've spent. Here at home, I wake up, I grab my phone, I stretch out in bed, scroll through emails from last night, reply to a couple, read emails, I'm brushing my teeth, do the workout thing, get in the shower, get out, as I'm making breakfast or having breakfast, making coffee, I've got my email open and I'm watching Teams, and I'm like, how many hours did I work today? The answer is I got up, and then sometimes I can't tell you how many days I've had where you're working on something and my brain works really well with like trance music or like EDM of types. So I'll put music on, put my headphones on, and I'll start working. I'm like, all right, it's 9. I'll be done. I would be done with this by 11. And I look up and I'm like, it's dark. It's like, oh my God, it's 7. Yeah. Like, what happened?
Yeah, and similarly with even national, but more so international teams, is I would get up. My UK team was 5 hours in the office before I brushed my teeth.
Yeah.
And so, really working out, it would force me to kind of get on earlier and earlier and early in the morning. And, thankfully I didn't have too many folks to the west of me, but for my UK team, they were often working well into the evening. So, if you're managing cross time zones, it's really easy to lose sight of your people working really long hours.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to accommodate time zones.
And I'm terrible at time zone math, and you don't always know where somebody's at. And then I've got a group I'm working with in the UK right now, and we have 8 a.m. meetings here. I'm on the East Coast, so they're 5 hours ahead. Okay, that's not too bad. But my boss is in Mountain Time, so he's 2 hours, so it's 6 a.m. for him. He's like, no, it's fine, I'll take it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and reschedule that, or I'm just going to take this one for you, because like nobody should have to get up at 6 a.m. for a meeting. That's not the end of, like, not a fire.
Right. So I used to take a 6 a.m. all the time, but it was very funny. My entire team was in Europe. I didn't have anybody reporting to me in the States at one point.
Wow.
And my peer was in Phoenix, Arizona, Mike Elmore. And so we got scheduled for this one meeting that was like 5 a.m. my time. And I remember the CIO of that business unit being like very firm on the people on the call, being like, there is no reason I need to have the Americans up at dark for this kind of a call. And she was so firm about it. And from that point forward, but poor Mike, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And he was like, well, there was just no point in going to bed. And I was like, oh. But, but when you talk about, burnout, that's how it happens, right? It doesn't happen in a couple long days. It's not a week. It's incremental pieces of the job. And I think part of it being that, that ADHD kind of thing that we seem to all struggle with, right? We're constantly our brains are constantly thinking about too many things, hard to quiet down. And so we're always working because our field also requires that level of attention. right? Things are changing always.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, gosh, I'm tired.
Yeah.
And, the situation I'm in right now is like, you know what, I'm just going to call a timeout. And,
Good
I've
for
been
you.
kind of idle. Yeah, I've been idle now for, almost 8 weeks. And I was saying to you earlier, people keep sending me jobs like they're trying to help me. And I really appreciate it. At the same time, I'm like, not yet.
You're like, yeah, I'm not ready.
Not quite
I'm not ready for this yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple of other friends of mine have taken I'm taking a month or two off, and that's a fantastic thing. I guess in my previous job, it was we're transforming the company, all hands on deck. This will pay off. Let's just work through this. And I remember I used to use that Swarm app that you could, because we all kind of played the check into the office game. And I remember I scrolled back through some of that where I checked into the office at 7:30 a.m. and I left at 11:30, and I'm like, that is not okay. My health was not. I mean, it was just not good. My heart rate was sometimes erratic. I was always tired. The weekends, it was like, what do we want to do? Sleep. I just need to lay on the couch and do nothing. It's like, no, like, look at all that beautiful weather out there, and I'm just too tired for any of it. And you get too tired to play with the kids and too tired to enjoy the out. You're right. It happens in increments, and so, but there's different levels this happens at, right? As an entry level employee, it's really easy to get caught up in like, if I work really hard, I'll get to the next level, and leadership that encourages that.
Yeah, the recognition burnout, right?
And there's leadership that encourages that, and I feel like that's a terrible way to bring somebody into our industry, because it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah. And then there's the middle management burnout, which is totally different. It's not that they're working lots of hours, it's that they don't feel heard, right? And so how many times, and we see this a lot in diversity candidates also, which is the, unconscious bias keeps them from being heard.
Yeah.
And so over and over and over again, if nobody is listening to you, if no one's validating you, if people are stealing your ideas, you burn out twice as fast because you just feel you're literally spinning your wheels.
Yeah, you're doing nothing.
Yeah. And I think oftentimes, I keep telling people, right? I hear a lot, well, I've got to put in at least another year here, otherwise it looks bad on my resume. I'm like, no, just let it go.
Yeah.
Seriously, the market that we're in, let it go. There's another job out there, and eventually someone's going to come to that part of your resume and be like, well, you only spent insert months here at this place. Why is that? And the answer is, everybody has one experience that changed the way they looked at their career, and this was that experience. It wasn't a good fit. And that's a completely legit response.
Absolutely.
But I'm tired of hearing people staying in miserable jobs because they feel like they have to meet some sort of time threshold there.
Yeah, and there's another version of this too, and we'll get in the operational section in a second. But there's another version of this too, where you've got leadership that I feel like I've worked with two types of leadership: those that feel like they've earned their way to like a 5-hour work week, and then those that feel like they're responsible for everyone all the time. And I watched that just age people. I had a boss that we worked together for a year, and he left for family reasons that were totally valid. But I'm glad he did, because you could just see it in his face. You could just see it just sapping the life out of the guy, because get in the office early, travel to the office, a couple of cities away. So to get there early on a Monday, work. All I'm here at the office. I've got nothing to do. Might as well work all week. Then you work until Thursday. You go home on Friday. Meanwhile, you've put in a week and a half worth of work in 4 days, right? Because you're like, well, that happened to you and I quite a bit, and our colleagues, where you travel, you go out
5 cities in 4 days.
Yeah, and you're like, well, I'm not at home. I have nothing to do. Might as well keep working. And I wish somebody earlier in my career would have slapped me and said, no, that's not how this works. Like, take a minute. You're going to emotionally damage yourself long term if you don't quit. And just, take a minute.
Yeah, I think that taking a break, I said I think I posted to LinkedIn not so long ago a Harvard Business Review article about taking a break. And it was really about taking a break in the work day, and what the health and emotional benefits of that taking a break are. But I think we really look at our careers and say, take a break. Because I know way too many people. I did it when I left Optiv. I was done at Optiv on Friday and I started at GSK on Monday.
Yeah.
Why did I do that? Well, why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
And we don't take that. But, you talk to our European colleagues, and they have like 4 weeks or something that they take in between, and they really, really recharge. And, what I've learned from my kind of time off here is I have done a lot of stuff, right? Like, wow, really reflecting on, well, what do I want to do next? And figuring it out. It's, work relationships are relationships in general,
Yeah.
right? So in every relationship, whether it's a friendship, a parent-child relationship, your romantic relationship, or a work relationship, there's a start, beginning, and an end. And Mike Eisenberg told me that. And you have to know where you are in this relationship. And when a relationship's end, you need to stop, take stock of what worked and what didn't work in that relationship before you jump into the next one.
That's
And I think
that's a great idea.
right? It's just the analogy really works because you think about it, you hear somebody who got divorced and they're married, 4 months later, and you're like, gosh, you didn't spend much time reflecting on,
Yeah.
what worked or didn't work, right? And you see that kind of, you see it even in sometimes in friendships, but knowing where you are, start, beginning, middle, beginning, and really understanding when you're at the end of the relationship. It doesn't matter how long the relationship was. If you're at the end, you're at the end, and it's time to move on.
Yeah. The part that really concerns me is we've been talking about the fact that we've got this massive shortage in the ops section of security, and I feel like that is the part of the career path that eats the most people's souls the fastest, right? Because you've got these, and it happened to me many years ago, and I said that, as soon as I can get out of operational jobs, I'm never going back. But it's the pages at 2 a.m. every 2 a.m. It's the working early to late, working overnight.
My strobe. I used to have my strobe light on because after a while I stopped hearing the phone. But the strobe light you can't ignore.
Yeah. And that's I mean
2 a.m.
I think that needs to get recognized more than it is, because those jobs, right, where it's basically being a fireman. You're in that job where maybe nothing happens for a week, and you're just kind of just doing your thing, and then something happens week after week after week, and you are in go mode. And you are in go mode until it's solved. So there's not like, I'm working my 8 hours, I'm going home. No, it's like, no, you go until it's done. And those jobs are brutal. But that's all part of it.
So when when I was doing crisis coaching, the first thing I would say when I landed boots on the ground to an impacted company was, my job is to make sure your CISO gets some sleep. He's useless to us when he erupts because he's overtired and overstressed out. And then putting in the schedule, like as soon as I land, here's what the schedule needs to be, figure out who's going to be here when, because you can't work these people around the clock, and you also have to feed them, right? So those are the first things I did when I hit the ground was, what are we feeding them, and when are we sending them home to sleep? What are what's the deal? Because that piece of working around the clock and those particular SecOps roles is killing us from a recruiting perspective. Also, we also have to worry about career development for those guys. Is oftentimes they don't want to be people managers, but that doesn't mean they don't want to grow their career. So we have to solve for that somehow.
That doesn't mean they also want to be being smoke jumpers every day, all day for the rest of their lives, right? I mean, those are that is a tough way to make a living, and I understand. Early on, I thought I could do that forever, and it was fun, and it was exciting, but like a couple of years in, and I'd watch people do it 10, 15 years, and I'm going, how are you still doing, where do you get the energy for it? Because and maybe maybe you find balance. I was never able to find that balance because it was either you're on or you're dead tired. There was not really an in-between.
And worse, when you're dead tired, your brain is still on, right? So that, they say this about infants. They say, infants need to sleep about every 90 minutes to 2 hours, they need to be down for a nap. And if they get overtired, that's when you start to get the colicky, cranky. Now they can't go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I feel like the same is true about, InfoSec or SecOps, the fire jumpers, as you called them, is once we get them overtired, now when they go home to go to sleep, they can't.
Yeah.
And they're still working
Yeah.
and they're not really recharging. But I also think in that kind of career level, I think COVID has done a great service to the security organization, because all those companies that were like, you must be in the office.
Yeah.
We have this corporate culture. We want to jam down your throat. You must be in the office to receive our corporate culture. And now they're kind of like, oh, so we could do it without you being in the office, right? And I think some companies are still pushing to go back. But from a security perspective, I can reach around the globe for people now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas traditionally before, they've been like, oh, are you prepared to move to insert random city here?
You're like, no.
No, I'm not.
Well, so
Yeah.
I tell you, I'm on the having had a work from home job that I feel like I was at least moderately successful at, because I didn't get, I've grown my career.
You didn't
I
get
didn't
fired,
get fired, so I wasn't that bad at it. But then having survived some of or exited right around the time, Meg Whitman decided that if you're not in the office, you're not working. And I'm like, wait a second, though. I can tell you for a fact that I work significantly more out of the office, and I'm probably more productive than people that are in the office, because they spend, first 4 hours social time walking around cubicles, the next hour at lunch. It's like, come on now. But there is something to be said for that human interaction, and so I recently had a occasion to. So my boss is in Denver. Our principal engineer is in Dallas. I'm here in Atlanta. So we get on Teams calls and stuff all the time to brainstorm ideas. And we've been working on this particularly difficult thing we're trying to solve from a services delivery perspective. And I'm like, guys, I'm just going to get us all to Denver for an afternoon. Let's just knock this out. And we flew in on the evening before. We went out to dinner, had breakfast, came in late. We got there like 10. By 3 o'clock, we're looking at the whiteboard. We're going, holy crap, we've solved it. And it's 3 o'clock. Let's go get a drink. Done. Because we were just
right. I agree with you.
I could stare at him and go, wait, hold on, give me the marker real quick. What do you think of this? No? All right, I think I would get up and grab the marker and go, what do you think of this? And then, one of my other colleagues would walk in, she'd go, oh, you guys are doing this wrong. And she'd erase something, put it like, oh, we didn't think of this. And that, we have to do that. We've decided we're going to do that at least on a monthly basis for 2 days. And that's what I think needs to happen. I think if we save our money from office spaces, right? If you look at what it costs to put people in offices and, the employee programs, the coffee in the break room, all of those kind of perks, and you add up that money and you say, all right, how much does it cost me to bring my team together for a week, twice a year? Yeah.
Right? Or whatever, right? Or it's going to be materially less money to fly everybody to one location to bond, because I do think you can't bond over this.
Yeah, humans aren't built for. I mean, we are. I know a psychologist pretty well, and she says, we are touch creatures, right? From the womb, we require touch. So we need to shake somebody's hand, slap somebody on the back, whatever. We need to have that ability. We need to be here, present physically, and when we're not, there's a different psychology in our brain that I can still see you. You're there. We're talking. I get it, but it's not the same as if you were sitting right here and having that conversation in person. It's just not. So there's a requirement to do this in person, but every day, no.
No, right, and to be invested in their lives. How many of my employees had babies over the last year, and I loved getting to see the babies, over the link, over the Skypes or Zooms, whatever. But like I said, at one point in my time at GSK, I didn't have a single employee based in the United States. And we did just fine. And I would fly to wherever, usually London, and, spend a week with the team, and we would go out to dinners and we would have coffee and, we'd do all the things that made bonding happen. But we didn't need to be in the office every day to be successful. Right. We were a super high performing team, remote.
I think that's the future.
But I do think you're right. I think there has to be time together. don't know that it needs to be, I need to devote 2 hours every day of the highway in order to have that
because
togetherness.
you lose all that. You lose all that time in transition. You get so much more frustration sitting in traffic. How much does it cost in gas money, in parking fees, in all the crap that you...
The environmental impact. Did you see the change when everybody went home? Like all the environmentalists were like, holy crap, you guys said we couldn't do it and we just did it.
Yeah.
That was incredible. Or even how often do you spend on your car synced in a meeting while driving? How effective are you then? I'm not.
No.
Yes, I'm present in your meeting and I'm listening, but I'm not.
Yeah, I'm
effective.
trying not to run into the person in front of me because they just slammed their brakes. Like I'm.
Or at least that should be my priority.
Right. Yes. I mean, it's not quite reading the paper on I-90 in Chicago traffic, but it's not a too far distant second.
No. Right. And I love travel, and I know not everyone does, but gosh, I can't wait. Cannot wait to get back in the air.
I've got to tell you, it's been so. I'm a little spoiled because down here in Georgia we did things a little bit differently. Back in May of last year, we kind of decided that as long as we were masked up and socially distanced, we could kind of go back to try to pretend like we were a normal society. And I started traveling again. And I did a couple of small trips. We took a trip for my birthday this year and out of the country, and I again, not everybody loves to travel, and I that's fine.
Right.
But I love seeing something new, going someplace new, having the adventure, getting out of my own room, getting out of my own house. Not that I don't love coming home and sleeping in my own bed, because God knows I love that, but just just the experience of connecting with people you'd never see, seeing something you'd never otherwise see, and being able to sit in a coffee shop in some place in Mexico, or going, heck, I'm on my list of things to do is go walk through the Louvre, and like you can do that digitally, not the same, right?
Yeah, it's not the same.
It really isn't.
I got to say, I've been to the Louvre and I was actually slightly disappointed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because it's massive, right? So it's just by the time you get to seeing the three things you went there to see, but the Musée d'Orsay is better.
Okay.
Across smaller, yeah. Highly recommend that. Go there first.
Okay.
Go there first. But still, just the idea that we go and be in a city and sit in a cafe, and I can't wait to get back to.
And I don't even mind traveling for it, like doing businessy stuff for it.
Nope. We did a little bit of travel in the fall, but and you've seen the memes on it. It's like in the airport, you're 6 feet apart, going to the desk, you're going through security, and then you get on the plane and you're sitting on each other's lap, and you're like, and as soon as the plane lands, they go, listen, to enable a socially distant deplaning, we're going to ask that you wait for the person in front of you to move up the plane before you stand up. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, I've been all but making out with the lady beside me, and now you're worried about whether or not she and I get off the plane at the same time? So there was a whole lot that just didn't make sense about how they did travel in the last year. But I'm ready. I'm vaccinated. Yeah. Put me on a plane. Let's do it. I got my little card. I don't care if you ask me for it. I'll get your card.
I love the fact that somebody, there was a meme around it that said, only in the U.S. can we provide a card that doesn't fit in a wallet or is in all way conducive to carrying it around. It's just the wrong size.
And easily copied. And my name is misspelt and crossed out and rewritten on it. Whatever. And
it's cardboard. The content will dissolve as soon as it touches your skin. Right? It's like.
Right, yeah, like mine's folded and in a pocket, and it's already got the folding.
Yeah.
To the crease.
I thought about laminating mine, but I'm like, that's just it's too big. It's just annoying. I just took a picture of it. I'm like, look, there's me. Huh.
That's what I did too. I put it in my phone as a favorite, just in case anybody wants to see it.
Oh, so you're getting some good travel in the summer. You're planning on getting out and catching.
Well, I'm from Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Maine, and my father passed away a bit ago and left my brothers and I a house. So my brothers and I share my dad's house in Maine, and so I'll go up there and
I've never been to Maine,
time.
But I'd hear I'd love it because I love lighthouses and I love the coastline and.
It's great. So our house is on an island about 8 miles out to sea
Oh,
off
come
the
on
coast of
now.
Portland. So you have to take a ferry boat out there. It takes about 45 minutes on the ferry
Oh, I'm so
boat.
jealous right now.
Yeah, and you pretty much walk everywhere unless you have brought a car out there. You're pretty much on foot, and you have to like lug all your stuff out, which is totally fine. Casco Bay Lines. That's great. And but we've got, it's the house. It sits next to the house my dad grew up in.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, there's like a little private beach and everything. And
Okay, I'm so jealous. I might actually show up at your. Do you
yeah,
Verbo it?
it's we so my grandmother's house is next door, and we do rent that one. So,
I might.
but and the people, everybody there also grew up with my dad.
Okay.
Or also are lifers. So they've known me since, before me, right? They've known my dad since he was a boy.
Wow.
So, there's no hiding there either. There's no.
Well, that's kind of awesome, though. I feel like those kinds of I didn't when I bought this place I didn't go big. My previous house was like my dream house. Lots of room for the kids and an office and a basement with home theater and all that and a beautiful backyard and blah blah blah. This one I'm like I'm gonna go minimalist. I kind of went townhouse in a place where I don't ever have to mow the grass again, and if my roof leaks I fix that. But aside from that, I just I want to spend that time or the money rather than in a house someplace else, preferably ankle deep in some beautiful sand. But I thought about that, like what am I what else would I want to do? And as much as I love people, just to show you how much of an introvert I am, I'm thinking like Eastern Tennessee, where the property you can buy a property literally 10 grand will get you a couple acres, and I can build a log cabin, put some solar panels up, get some propane heat. I can do satellite internet if I want to.
Do it early because the Tennessee state schools, they have grants for Tennessee residents to attend the state schools.
Oh, that would be interesting.
That certainly helps with twin tuition.
Yeah, twin tuition. Hey, you know something about that.
I do a bit about that. So my children, I moved, Hutch and Piper are sixth graders this year, so I moved them into private school in the fall because our public school just fell all over themselves planning for COVID. And so with 2 weeks to go before the school year started, they still didn't have a plan. And I said, in the sixth grade, middle schoolers are learning to learn.
Yeah.
It's not about the content now, right? It really isn't about because they can catch up on the math, they can catch up on the reading. It's really about learning to learn and learning to be a student. And our school district still didn't have a plan, so I picked them up and moved them with 2 weeks to go in the semester. And the school was like, well, we don't have any, tuition assistance available yet or anymore because we were last ones in. And so there it was, twin tuition. But it was worth it. I 100%, I would do it again.
Luckily,
twin tuition.
Luckily, our public school system here in Cherokee County in Georgia is phenomenal. Their teachers are absolutely excellent. My boy gets a little extra help because speaking of ADHD, that kid, he's either gonna be an IT nerd or he's gonna have some
chip off the old blockhead. You're saying?
Yeah. Can neither confirm nor deny. It's kind of funny because my ex-wife, we were talking about like how he is, and she's like, well, I've had him tested in this and this, and I'm like, and I'm looking at the report, I'm going, that's a thing? Oh crap! Like, ooh, I'm way worse than that. Like, I finished it and I put it down and I looked at it and I went, yeah, so I'm so much worse than he is. He's gonna be fine.
Right. So, but here's the thing. I keep coming back to this, right? The survival of our species relied on our ability to move from thing to thing to thing, to identify lots of things happening at once. And so it isn't a disorder. The disorder is requiring the human being to sit behind a computer screen for 8 consecutive hours and not move.
Yeah.
It is not, we are not disordered. The system that we live in is disordered.
That is cruel. 8 hours behind a computer screen and focus on a single thing is cruel and unusual punishment. The end.
That's right. It is not. It is the system we live in that's disordered, not our ability to move around to multiple things. Survival of our species relied on our ability to do that. That's right.
And on that
freaking
note,
warriors, Raph.
Yes.
Warriors.
All right. Well, Reed, thanks for joining. This has been fun. I love catching up. So
I love that we can move from everything from Meeting Free Friday to being warriors. Like that.
I took that note. I'm officially starting meeting free Fridays as of this Friday. I am blocking my calendar. That's it. Done. I'm gonna have.
Yeah, you're gonna get so much work done. It's incredible what you can do.
Yeah, and that way, I always try to. I've always made a point to try to, like, 4 o'clock on a Friday. But by 3 p.m., most of us are already checked out. So by 4, I'm just like, go home. Your brain is already there. Yep. You just go catch up to it. You're not going to be any more productive for that last hour or last hour and a half. You're just not.
That's right. Meeting free Fridays is about setting the expectations and limiting and limits, right? Like setting safe barriers for people. Yeah. This is a space I need to work in, and just setting their expectation that you're not going to be available. Yeah. It's not that you're not working, you're just not available to them, and that is a totally normal boundary to maintain.
I'm 100% on that. All right, and on that note, thanks for being on the show. Good luck on your next adventure and being fun employed. I like that. I'm going to join you in that one day. Yeah. When I figure out how to do that. But anyway, thanks for
fun employment. Let's make it a thing.
Thanks for joining us, folks. Thanks for listening. This has been another edition of Down the Security Rabbit Hole. Dawn Marie Hutchinson has been my guest, and wishing her all the luck in whatever the heck you do next. You'll have to come back on the show and tell us what you're doing next. So,
yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you another time, another place on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Ciao, y'all.
As we fade out on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole episode, we'd like to encourage you to chat with our hosts and guests using the Twitter hashtag #DtSR. Please check out the show notes, catch up on any episodes you may have missed, and subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. Our website is whiterabbit.net, WH1T3RABBIT.net. So on behalf of Rafal, James, for now it's goodbye. We'll see you soon on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast.